What's up everybody, I'm Seth Fowler and today we're taking a look at some of the most anticipated sneaker releases of All-Star Weekend 2020. And believe me when I tell you, there's a lot of crazy stuff dropping, you don't want to miss it. So I just did a sit or sell video a couple days ago, but I really wanted to dive even deeper into some of the sneaker releases happening around All-Star Weekend because there really are a bunch, like a crazy amount, and a lot of them are sneakers that I really want to grab personally. Unfortunately, I'm probably not going to be able to grab all of these releases, not just because they're difficult to get, but also because there's like 6 shoes that I personally want and I just can't afford buying them all, even for retail. That's too much money to spend in one weekend. But just because I can't grab all of them doesn't mean that I can't talk to you guys about them and hopefully give you guys an idea of what's dropping so that if you want to grab anything for yourself, you know when it's dropping. I am very excited for All-Star Weekend. I'm planning to be there in Chicago this year. I've gone to the last few All-Star Weekends. I haven't actually gone to any of the All-Star games just because not trying to drop a couple grand on a game that doesn't really matter that much as I appreciate the game itself. I'm just not trying to drop the money. And one thing I've noticed is that the atmosphere during All-Star Weekends is always crazy. It's always electrifying. You're always super excited to be there. There's always crazy sneaker releases, and that of course means that there's always going to be crazy lines, which is the one downside in my opinion. A lot of these releases are Jordan brand releases, and if you're a Jordan lover, this is the All-Star Weekend you want to be going to. And it makes sense because All-Star Weekend is in Chicago where Jordan played, so I totally understand. There are a few decent Nike releases, and of course we've got at least one Yeezy dropping, so no matter what, it's gonna be a crazy weekend. So I guess without further ado, let's jump right into the video. So to start things off with a shoe that's kind of an honorable mention because it releases the weekend before All-Star Weekend, we've got the Air Jordan 1 High 85 in Varsity Red. This is definitely one of my most anticipated releases of the month. I love the Air Jordan 1, and I absolutely love the fact that Jordan Brand is going back to the original OG cut. I guess original OG is kind of redundant. Scratch that. This version of the shoe has a much more retro vibe than some of the more recent Air Jordan 1s, of course due to the cut. One sticking point for a lot of people is the colorway and the fact that it's never really been done like this before and people just don't seem to like it. I don't really understand why. I mean, I get that it kind of looks like a mashup of a few different colorways and some purists might not like that, but I don't have a problem with it. I think it looks dope. The one downside to this shoe is that it's probably going to be very limited, which I guess is an upside to some people. According to rumors, this shoe is limited to only 23,000 pairs, which makes sense. 23, Michael Jordan's number, 23,000 pairs. I get what they're doing there, I just don't like that it's so limited. Another detail that's just come out is that the shoe seems to only have numbering on the dust bag and not actually the sneaker itself, which leads some people to believe that maybe there'll be a wider release of the sneaker in the next couple months, but I kind of doubt that. I definitely think it's weird that they're only numbering the dust bags and not the sneakers itself, but it could just be a rumor and it could not be true, so we'll just have to wait and see. If you're trying to grab the Air Jordan 1 High 85 in Varsity Red, it drops on February 8th for a retail price of $200. Then moving on to releases that are actually dropping during All-Star Weekend, we've got the Gatorade Nike PG4 All-Star Weekend. I'm not a huge PG4 guy. I don't love the way the silhouette looks, but that doesn't mean it's a bad silhouette by any stretch of the imagination. The one thing I actually do like about this sneaker is that it comes with a tie-dye upper, and that's something that really reminds me a lot of some of those mid-2000s All-Star Weekend releases. Even though it's a newer silhouette, it does have some of that throwback feel, which I really like about it. If you're trying to grab this Gatorade All-Star Weekend PG4, it drops on February 13th for $120. A little bit higher on the list, we've got the Nike LeBron 17 Monstars, which is inspired from the brand new Space Jam 2 movie. In addition to releasing this colorway, Nike also unveiled the brand new Space Jam 2 jerseys, so if you want to grab like a Monstars jersey and then the Monstars LeBron, you probably would have a good Halloween costume. Not something that I would wear casually, nothing against the design of either of these two things, but wearing them together would look kind of goofy. The sneaker itself definitely has some Los Angeles Laker vibes, and that's obviously done on purpose, and I've got to be honest, between this colorway and the LA colorway that dropped a couple months back, I might actually choose the LA colorway. It's a decent looking shoe, and I like how they changed up the color of the tongue on either side of the pair. One's orange and one's purple, but it's not enough to make me buy it. However, if you're trying to grab it and dress up like a Monstar, you can grab it on February 13th for the retail price of $220. Then moving on to sneakers that I'm a little bit more interested in, we've got the Nike Kyrie 6 in the Trophies colorway. This red and gold Trophies colorway is inspired by the Bulls' 1996 championship, and it's also kind of cool because Kyrie had his first championship in 2016, which was exactly 20 years later. This Kyrie 6 comes in a very Red October look, of course with some metallic gold accents like on the Nike swoosh and on the midsole, and if you're a Kyrie collector, this is definitely a must-have. I myself am not one. In fact, I think I only have 1 or 2 pairs of Kyries at the moment. I've been downsizing my collection, so it might be less, but it's not something that I'm really drawn to or really feel like I need to spend the money on. It honestly is still a dope Kyrie 6 colorway, it's just not something that I need. I will say that I think a lot of people are excited about it though, and it's probably going to be a limited release, so it won't be easy to get. So if you're trying to grab a pair of the Kyrie 6 trophies for yourself, they drop on February 14th, which is also Valentine's Day, for a retail price of $140. After that, we've got the first Jordan on the list, the Air Jordan 10 Wings. The Wings program, which the shoe is obviously named after, is a program that allows high school students to start learning about footwear design and apparel design. And what's interesting is that 4 students from the Chicago program actually helped design this shoe. I wasn't too familiar with what the program was or what it was about, and I've got to say, after reading about it, I think it's awesome. That said, I'm just not in love with this colorway. It's not for me. It's not bad, it's just not my thing. This Air Jordan 10 Wings comes in primarily white with a metallic silver panel on the side. In addition to that, it's also got some red and blue piping outlining different panels of the shoe, and also sort of a forest green sock liner. It's not a bad look, and it's very clean and simple, and if you're trying to grab this shoe for yourself, you can grab it on February 12th for the retail price of $190. Then after that, we've got a really interesting collaboration between Don C and Kevin Durant on the KD12. This shoe is almost like a love letter to Chicago. It's very Chicago themed, and you can tell by the colorway, which represents the Chicago flag. Other designers, most notably Virgil Abloh, have also used this powder blue colorway to symbolize the Chicago flag on their sneakers. Another detail on the shoe that relates more to Kevin Durant than Don C are the stars on the tongue that actually represent Kevin Durant's 11 All-Star appearances. And in all seriousness, I think this is actually my favorite KD12 colorway. It just goes together so nice. That powder blue with that red, I dig it. What I'd be really interested to see is how many people actually play ball in this shoe and how many people just wear it casually because it's a Don C collab. Regardless, it's something that if I can pick up, I will pick up, but if I can't, no sweat off my back. If you're trying to grab this pair for yourself, it drops on February 15th for a retail price of $160. Next on the list is a sneaker that I've already reviewed, which is the Air Jordan 3 SE Unite. This shoe is definitely like the red cement version of the Air Jordan 3. It's essentially just a flipped black cement 3, and I think it looks good. If you didn't already know, there are 2 different versions of this shoe releasing. There's the standard GR version, which I'm sure you're familiar with, and then there's also the special edition Chicago version, which only changes out one thing, and that's switching out the Air text on the heel tab to Shy, because it's only releasing in Chicago. If you're interested in learning more about this sneaker, make sure to check out my review, which I've linked at the top of the screen. I'm honestly not 100% sure on the details of the special edition Chicago release. I wouldn't be surprised if it released on the same day as the standard release, which is February 15th. It could also release earlier. I have no idea. However, both of these versions of the shoe should release at a retail price of $200. Then we've got our first Yeezy release of the video, the Adidas Yeezy 700 V3 in the Alva colorway, which is also kind of just a black colorway. A lot of people who really wanted a pair of the 700 V3s missed out on the original colorway, and now they finally have a chance to grab a different colorway of the same sneaker. While personally I don't like the Alva colorway as much because I feel like that tan of the OG colorway is a little bit more interesting, something cool about this sneaker is that the upper still actually glows. The Yeezy 700 V3 is a really cool silhouette because Kanye and Adidas are really trying something different. They're really going all in on that sort of organic look, which I really like. Yes, they're still dropping 350 V2 colorways that all look almost exactly the same, but at least we're still getting some releases that are different and interesting as well. On a side note about the 700 V3, the sizing is a little bit funky. It's a bit smaller than you would expect, so I would recommend going up half a size. I mean, you can probably squeeze your foot into a true to size pair. That's what I had to do, unfortunately, because I just didn't know how the shoe would fit when I bought it, but I definitely recommend going up half a size if you can. Something nice about the 700 V3 though is that unlike the other 700s, the retail price is $80 lower. Instead of paying $300 for a pair, you can buy a pair of these for $220. That's probably because they didn't use Boost in the midsole of this shoe, which unfortunately means it's not as soft as some of the previous 700s, but the $80 price drop is nice. So if you're trying to grab a pair of the Yeezy 700 V3 Alvas, they drop on February 15th for a retail price of $220. After that, we've got another rumored release of the Yeezy Quantum basketball sneaker. Apparently there's only 5,000 pairs dropping, and they're dropping during All-Star Weekend. Now to be honest, I haven't seen any evidence of this. I've talked about this shoe releasing for the last 2 years, so the chance of it actually dropping are pretty slim. Let's be real though, it's probably not dropping. I've talked about this shoe in like 7 different videos and it still has yet to drop. I just wanted to throw it in this video just in case it did. Oh yeah, and the rumored release date is February 15th, but take that with a grain of salt. Next up on the list is the Nike Adapt BB 2.0. As the name of the shoe would suggest, this is the second version of the auto-lacing Nike basketball sneaker. Last year's version, which I have on the shelf right back there, was a really cool sneaker because it gave us auto-lacing sneakers at a reasonable price, or at least a somewhat attainable price of $350. The original Adapt BB was exciting for what it did, but it wasn't the best looking sneaker in the world. It looks like the Adapt BB 2.0 is finally refining the design and making it look cool. This shoe definitely has Batmobile vibes, and I dig that about it. I think it's a great looking sneaker. Now the downside to this sneaker is that unfortunately the retail price has gone up by $50, so the shoe now sells for $400 instead of $350. If you really want a pair of auto-lacing sneakers and you don't have one, this is a good one to grab because it should be cheaper than most of the other auto-lacing sneakers on the market. I mean, you can also play basketball in it too because it is actually a performance basketball sneaker that NBA players have played in, so you're probably not as heavy or as strong as an NBA player, so you should be fine. Maybe you are. I probably shouldn't be making any assumptions, but most likely you're a normal person. If you decide that you want to grab a pair of the brand new Adapt BB 2.0s, they release on February 16th for, like I said, $400. Next up is another sneaker that I've talked about a lot in previous videos, and that's the women's Air Jordan 1 NC to Chicago. This shoe is dope, and a lot of people are really excited about it. The one downside to this sneaker, I guess not really a downside, but the one thing that might deter some normal Air Jordan 1 buyers is that this shoe is exclusively a women's release. Now, even though this release is technically just for women, it's still releasing up to like a size 16.5, which I think is a 15 in men's. Unfortunately for most guys, women's Air Jordan 1s are cut slightly different than the normal men's pairs, so the fit might be a little bit different than what you're used to, but it's still something that you can definitely work with, and if you want this shoe, it's not a bad pickup. The heel of the shoe comes in a light UNC inspired blue, and then the toe of the shoe has sort of a bread look to it. The women's Air Jordan 1 NC to Chicago is supposed to be a somewhat limited release, although it won't be as limited as some of the other shoes that I've talked about on the list. It will be more difficult to get than, say, the pair of Gatorade PG4s. And if you decide that you want a pair, the shoe releases on February 13th for a retail price of $160. After that, we've got a pack releasing that I think everybody is stoked for, and that's the Air Jordan New Beginnings pack. This pack includes two iconic sneakers, the Nike Airship, which I don't believe is released since the 80s, and the Air Jordan 1 in a varsity red and white makeup. The Nike Airship is such an iconic sneaker because it's actually the first shoe that Michael Jordan wore in the NBA before he even wore the Air Jordan 1. You know that whole story about the Air Jordan 1s being banned because of their black and red makeup? Well, it turns out that it was actually the Nike Airship that was banned in that colorway. So Jordan Brand and Nike definitely did some finagling with that story to make it much more advertiser friendly. And when you look at the Nike Airship, you can definitely see where the Air Jordan 1 was inspired. It's a very similar looking sneaker, but it does have some differences. A lot of OG heads are really excited about the Airship, and even though I wasn't around when the Airship was being played in, it's still a sneaker that I really want to pick up. And then of course the other sneaker in the pack is a pair of Air Jordan 1 High 85s. Like the varsity reds that we talked about earlier in the video that are also dropping a couple days before this pair is releasing, this shoe comes in the 85 cut, which means it looks a little bit different than the standard Air Jordan 1s. This Air Jordan 1 85 comes in all varsity red and white and is one of the cleanest Jordan 1s to drop in a really long time. I'm so excited for this pack, but damn, it's gonna be limited. Because of just how hyped up this pack is, and because of how limited this pack is gonna be, even though it's priced at $350, this pack is bound to sell out immediately. At the time of recording this video, the release date hasn't officially been announced yet, but most people are expecting this pack to drop on February 12th. And there's a reason why I put this pack so high on the list, because I need it. I've got to have it. I'll pay resale for it if I have to. It sucks, but I will. And then rounding off the video as my #1 most anticipated sneaker release of All-Star Weekend 2020, we've got the Off-White Air Jordan 5, or as it's now being called, the Air Jordan 5 Virgil Abloh. I kind of wish Virgil had gone for a more OG approach like he did with the Dunks that released in December, where a majority of the shoe is just like the originals, but then he added his own off-white touch to it. But it seems like the only thing that's really similar to the OGs about this Air Jordan 5 is the fact that it kind of comes in a black metallic colorway. This off-white Jordan 5 comes in an almost entirely plastic mesh upper with these really interesting sort of circular cutouts and details all around the sneaker. I'm still not totally sure how I feel about those cutouts. I feel like we could have just done without those and the shoe still would have been different enough with the materials that they used, but hey, it is what it is. What's even crazier is that there's actually a cutout through the tongue. There's just a giant hole in the center of the tongue. And I mean, I don't know what to think of that. Even though the colorway isn't exactly a black metallic colorway, it is solid and I do like the way it looks. I also don't mind the yellowing outsole. It kind of gives the shoe a very aged look. And it also looks like the tongue on this Air Jordan 5 has been stretched a little bit, which I'm kind of into. This is one of those shoes that from a distance you might not realize it's such a crazy sneaker, and then when you get up close you start to notice all the different Virgil Abloh touches, and it really makes you give it a second look. Of course, because this shoe is an Off-White Air Jordan collab, it's going to be insanely limited and insanely coveted, so actually grabbing a pair for retail is going to be difficult. Now, I have no idea what the resale is going to be like on this pair. I don't know if it's going to sell for under $1,000 or over $1,000. I would assume probably over $1,000, but we'll just have to wait and see. I think the reason I like this pair so much is because it's a reimagining of a classic. Even though I don't love every single detail, I love the fact that they're taking risks with it. I'm a big fan of taking risks with design. And as you could probably tell from the fact that this sneaker is #1 on the list, I'm definitely going to be trying to grab a pair for myself. If you want to try and grab a pair of the Off-White Air Jordan 5s or Air Jordan 5 Virgil Ablohs, they release on February 15th for a retail price of $225. But that pretty much wraps things up for today. Now, I would love to know your thoughts on these releases and which shoes you're looking forward to most, so let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you all in the next one.